All right, assalamu alaikum. So today we're going to be going over two different signs of Allah. All right. So the first one is going to be about the miswak. All right. So let's take a look at what the miswak is. So this is the miswak, right? Most of you guys have probably seen a miswak before. So what is a miswak? A miswak is basically a stick where the fibers, all right, the fibers are kind of separated and they turn into some kind of brush-like thing, right? So if you take a look over here at the, at the top right, we see that, the person has kind of peeled away the bark and the outer covering, and then the inside fibers of the miswak have been kind of chewed up and smashed together, so that the fibers that make up the wood have separated and they form kind of like the fibers of a toothbrush. All right. So where does this miswak come from? Well, there's many different kinds of sticks that people have used throughout the world, but the miswak traditionally in the Arabic world in North Africa comes from a tree that looks like this. So this tree, I think, is called the arak tree, A-R-A-K. So this tree, right, the miswak usually comes from the roots of this tree. Right? So people dig up the roots of the tree and they cut it into pieces, and that becomes the miswak. Right? So how do you use the miswak? Right? So you have a miswak and you kind of peel the one of the outer edges at the very top, and then you take the bristles and you kind of mechanically, either by chewing on it or by just with your fingers, or you could use maybe a hammer or something and kind of smash it apart, and you could smash apart the fibers, and they come apart, and then you brush your teeth with it. And then maybe after a while, depending on how often you use the miswak, you cut off the top part of the miswak, and eventually you replace the miswak. So people have been using things like the miswak for a long period of time, right? In the past, we didn't have plastics. There wasn't like toothbrush and stuff like that. So the miswak was used a long time ago in the past. So we're going to go over some of the benefits of the miswak, from the scientific point of view, as well as what does it say in the hadith about the miswak. So this is one research paper about the miswak. This is a review article. All right, it says a review. So what does that mean? It means that they did not do some original research in this paper, but they took like the research from a lot of other studies, a lot of other scientists, and they kind of tried to organize and put it all together so that you get a complete picture of the miswak. So what is this paper saying? This paper is going through all the different benefits of the miswak from the point of view of all the different studies, right? So it says here, right, the miswak is a traditional chewing stick prepared from the roots, twigs, and stem of Salvadora persica, and that's the scientific name of the tree. So it comes from the roots, twigs, and stem of this tree, and it has been used as a natural method for tooth cleaning in many parts of the world for thousands of years. A number of scientific studies have demonstrated that the miswak possesses antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, anti-carcinogenic, and anti-plaque properties. Several studies have also claimed that miswak has antioxidant, analgesic, and anti-inflammatory effects. So you can see that within the miswak, right, there are many different kinds of chemicals. So when you look at the miswak, it just looks like a bunch of fibers, right? But it's not just a bunch of fibers like the way the toothbrush has plastic fibers. Those fibers are filled with chemicals, right? And those chemicals have all kinds of benefits. Some of those benefits including killing bacteria or fungus or viruses. Others decrease pain, right? So the miswak has within all these chemicals that we can use, and when we apply to the teeth, it has some kind of benefits. So let's take a look at some of those benefits. All right. So this picture over here shows all kinds of different compounds that are contained within the miswak, and possibly what kind of possible benefits they could have. So for example, we do see there is a little bit of fluoride in the miswak, right? Probably not a whole lot, but there is some fluoride within the miswak. But it also has different kinds of chemicals that kill bacteria and fungus. So for example, this thing over here, tannins, tannic acid, right? That's kind of what makes it kind of like a little bit bitter and that kind of thing. It basically has been shown to reduce plaque and gingivitis, right? And that's from this, this person's paper, from their research paper. it reduces this fungus called Candida albicans. All right. We also see that different kinds of alkaloids, chemicals that are called alkaloids, stop the growth of bacteria, right? And they stimulate the gingia, which is the gums, all right? So a lot of different, compounds have been shown to have different kinds of positive effects on the teeth and the gums, right? Now this paragraph over here is talking about the different kinds of antibacterial effects, right? So this is just like one paragraph. There are actually a couple paragraphs about the antibacterial effects. So what is antibacterial? Anti means against, and bacterial means like bacteria, like germs, right? So there are a lot of compounds, a lot of chemicals in the miswak that kill bacteria, right? So it says here that they took some of these different kinds of bacteria, right? Staphylococcus aureus, Streptococcus mutans, and so on, right? There's a bunch of bacteria and fungi that they tested, and they found that there was some effect that if you take some chemicals from miswak, that it kills some of these bacteria, and so on, right? There's a lot of details in here that you can read, but basically it's showing that a lot of studies have shown that some chemicals from the miswak kill a lot of different kinds of common bacteria that are present in the mouth. This one over here is talking about antifungal effects, right? So remember we talked about fungus in the class. So fungi, right, are eukaryotic cells. So there are also different kinds of chemicals that kill or stop the growth of different kinds of fungi. So one important fungus is this one called Candida albicans. This is a yeast kind of fungi, right? And there's other kinds of Candida and so on, but this is one important kind of Candida. So it's showing you in here that to various extents, some of the chemicals from the miswak can kill or stop the growth of this fungus. It also has some antiviral effects, right? So they took a compound from the miswak and tested it on herpes simplex virus 1 and found that it had some effect on the virus. It killed some of the virus, and so basically this is one virus that sometimes is present in the mouth or in the oral gum area. So this compound can actually kill this virus to some extent. It also has effects against caries or against cavities. So this is basically the miswak can help to prevent cavities. So they did some studies and they showed that in some groups that those people who use the miswak, they actually had less cavities compared to people who did not use the miswak. So it says here that they did a study in Iran over here, right? So they took 174 students and they used the miswak, and then 156 students used the toothbrush. And so they found that in those students who used the toothbrush versus the miswak, there were more cavities in those students. There are also some studies that show that there are some anti-inflammatory effects and analgesic effects, right? So oftentimes when people, brush their teeth and stuff like that, the gums can get inflamed, right? So the gums can get inflamed because of different reasons, like sometimes because of the bacteria and stuff like that. But it becomes, inflamed, and it can become, painful, or there's like some pain. So they've shown that there's some compounds within the miswak that can reduce the inflammation a little bit. And there's many other kinds of benefits. So these are some of the benefits that were listed in the studies. So overall, they're saying that different studies have looked at look overall which is better, the miswak and the toothbrush. So from what I understand, some of these studies are showing that basically it's about the same, right? So one study showed that if you use both, it can be better. That maybe the toothbrush does some things that the miswak can't do, and the miswak, as we've seen, has some benefits that the toothbrush does not have, right? So, and then other studies are showing that overall, if you kind of use them each by itself, that the miswak and toothbrush are basically kind of similar in terms of how they do things. But some other studies are suggesting that maybe if you use both of them, then you're getting the benefits of both. That's possible. All right. So it's not 100% sure overall, but that's kind of the general idea that they're giving us. Now, it's also important not to use the miswak too much. Some people, they use it so much that their enamel kind of rubs off. So that's also not good. You want to use it in moderation. You don't want to use it like every hour, just using it constantly. There's some evidence that shows that maybe you wear away the enamel on your teeth, and that can also not be good. All right. But if you use it in moderation, they're saying maybe it's about the same as a toothbrush. So apart from that, we have a lot of spiritual benefits that we think about as well, right? So we know from the scientific point of view that the miswak has all these different kinds of interesting compounds and chemicals, and we can study those. And so the Prophet has, he used to use the miswak, very regularly. So it said that he used to use it like before almost every prayer. So it says here, one hadith says that if it were not that it would be difficult on my nation, then I would have ordered them to use the miswak for every prayer. So he said that, look, if I didn't think that it was, it would be too much of a burden, I would have told everybody, look, use the miswak before every prayer. But he wanted to make things easier on us, so he didn't tell us that, right? And there's other hadiths that also, like this one here on the right, that tell us about the benefits of using the miswak. And if you use a miswak, before the prayer, that prayer is more beneficial. And so there's different kinds of hadiths, like this that are mentioned.